Welcome to the inaugural Law Apps Bake-Off at the Melbourne Law School. My name is Gary Cazalet and I had the pleasure of teaching the class this semester and the students that you'll hear from today. I'd like to welcome colleagues, friends and families of those who can't be here but who are watching these proceedings around the world. They are being streamed across the web, across Australia and internationally. I know we've got colleagues in Washington DC and in New York watching this. It's about 2:35 a.m. there, and luckily for them we haven't got Skype, so their choice of pyjamas can remain their secret. We are, I believe, the first law school in Australia in which students have designed, built and finalised web-based legal expert systems that provide tailored legal information to consumers. Anyone with more than a passing interest in the legal profession will know that it is undergoing rapid change. It is clear that the use of the kind of technology that our students have been using will be part of the future. It will impact access to justice and the provision and cost of legal services across the complete legal spectrum. I'd like, first of all, to welcome and thank the judges for agreeing to judge tonight's bake-off. They are Andrew Gretsch, Group Managing Director, Slater & Gordon Lawyers. Andrew personally and through Slater's has supported the introduction of this subject to Melbourne Law School. Their support has made this subject not just a possibility, but a reality. Thank you. Our next judge is Professor Carolyn Evans, Dean of the Melbourne Law School. Professor Evans has taken a keen interest in the establishment of this subject in the law school curriculum. She's recognised that our students are facing a rapidly changing work environment, and she was determined to ensure that they have access to the skills and knowledge that will enable them to not only participate, but to lead in their chosen profession. Finally, we have Julian Ubergang, Managing Director, Asia Pacific, Neota Logic. Julian represents Neota Logic, the company that has supplied not only the software platform on which all of these applications have been built, but has also provided substantial ongoing technical support to students throughout the semester. Before we start the presentations, I would like to publicly thank a number of people. You'll see a number of people thanked in the program. The success of this subject has been a total group effort. Some subjects you can probably ascribe to just the teacher and the students, but here it is absolutely a group effort. The inspiration and much of the know-how for this subject came from Professor Tanina Rostein from Georgetown Law School, and her support and encouragement has been invaluable. John Lord, the co-founder of Neota Logic, has made regular trips from the USA and the UK to the law school to challenge, inspire, support and question the entire class. Kevin Mulcahy, Director of Education for Neota, is based in New York. He'll be watching these proceedings, and I'd like to thank him for working tirelessly, really tirelessly, ignoring the reality of time differences between New York and Australia to provide daily technical support to the students. I'd also like to thank the participating organisations, and I know the students will be thanking them individually. Finally, the thanks I want to give is to the students. Being a teacher is a great privilege and a great honour. The students you will hear from decided to sign up to a new course knowing very little about it, but being willing to take a chance and to try something new. It says something about the enthusiasm of our law school students to note that the subject was oversubscribed within about 3 days of enrolments opening. I can tell you that the 2016 Law Apps subject, which will commence in March next year, is already oversubscribed with a waiting list. The students in Law Apps worked in groups to develop their applications. I have seen how hard they have worked, how they've overcome technical and other difficulties, and how they have cared for each other along the way. This subject has stretched all of them in many ways, and I'm incredibly proud of their achievements. Thank you. I'd like to introduce the first presentation. Each team has 8 minutes to present their app, followed by 5 minutes of questions from the judges. The first team is for the JobWatch Legal Rights Information app for JobWatch.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Hannah. This is Cyril, Pat and Yondre. We created our application for JobWatch. JobWatch is an employment rights community legal centre that is committed to improving the lives of workers, particularly the most disadvantaged. To start with, we would all like to thank JobWatch, and in particular Zana, by the way, for her extensive help and input over the last few months. JobWatch do fantastic work, and we've really enjoyed our time with them. We would also like to thank Gary Cazalet for a really fun and fascinating semester. JobWatch is an independent, non-for-profit organisation and is the only service of its type in Victoria. The centre receives state and federal funding to engage in community legal education, represent and advise disadvantaged workers, conduct law reform work using its extensive database, and provide general information and referrals to Victorian workers via a free and confidential telephone information service. This, along with furthering their extensive database, is one of the areas our app focuses on. JobWatch functions by having approximately 2 lawyers present a day, with around 7 volunteers also present to help. A typical day for one of these volunteers is they will start taking calls from a queue. Callers can often wait for up to an hour before talking to a volunteer, given the volume of calls received. Once a call does reach a volunteer, each phone call takes between 20 to 50 minutes to gather their workplace information, which is then added to the database, and also just talk through their job issues. These calls can range from sexual harassment to restraint of trade clauses to discrimination. It can be a real mix. However, 4 of the largest areas that JobWatch deals with are harassment, discrimination, unfair dismissal, and general protection termination laws. These are the areas our app is targeted. Importantly, these volunteers, are non-lawyers, and they are not allowed to give legal advice, only information about legal options. This is one reason that our application has flagged on every single page at the bottom, as well as on the front page, that we are not giving legal advice. JobWatch really stresses the importance of this, and we felt obligated to do the same. For each phone call, out of that 40 minutes, often 10 minutes will be spent taking down the caller's information, age, gender, name, etc. As a result, one of our main aims for this application was to reduce some of the data gathering that occurs in each telephone call. Even if we're able to wipe 6 minutes off each phone call, the potential time savings we can make, which can then correlate to volunteers taking more calls, is extensive. This is particularly true given that traditionally the phone service has taken 20,000 calls per year. However, nowadays it's closer to 6,000 a year due to a decrease in funding. A further aim of our application was to gather data for JobWatch's database. JobWatch maintains a comprehensive database of the callers who contact the telephone information service, and so far has collected over 160,000 records. These allow them to report anonymously on callers' experiences, including trends across different industries, genders, and aged workers. Our app attempts to reduce time spent on the phone by providing JobWatch with a record of the user's information and the callers themselves with a targeted report. The application also provides tailored information responding to what the users have inputted on the 4 areas of employment law that we've discussed above. The application gives information that is tailored to respond to what they tell us, and we tried our best.
Hello, my name's Yandre, and Hannah will be playing Joanne, a 58-year-old lettuce picker from Parkville. She's worked at lettuce picking for about 8 years, and recently she got a new manager who told her that women just aren't cut out for the dynamic world of lettuce farming. About a week later, her manager told her that she had been spotted stealing from work. So she was dismissed on the spot. She called the Fair Work Commission, who told her that she must go to the JobWatch website, use their app, and then call JobWatch afterwards. And here she is. She's on the website. She's going to read some of the legal information up front, of course, and then she'll press accept and begin. So JobWatch only provides services to Victorian employees. So at this point, because she is in Victoria, she would select yes. If she weren't, in fact, the app would kick her out at that point and give her a link to other community legal centers in other states where she can just type in her postal code and receive information that way. She enters the information here, the personal information we need to gather, and she goes next. And we've already pre-filled some, so she'll have to enter her suburb. And at this point, after this, we collect the employment information. So this section, we've also got some information in these underlined sections, which, for example, tells her if she's unsure of what her employment status was, she can click there and get information on what a permanent full-time is, what permanent part-time is, and what casual basis employment is as well. She was permanent full-time, so she'll select that from the list. And also, she's going to want to know what kind of employment document governs her agreement. So it could be a modern award, it could be an enterprise agreement, or it could be just a contract. She knows she's under a modern award, but if she doesn't, we have a link to the Fair Work Ombudsman, which allows her to find out what she's covered. And we need to know the size of her employment because it's going to depend on her unfair dismissal potential claim. And she's worked there for 8 years, so she chooses 6 to 10 years. This information also helps JobWatch later in statistical for statistical purposes, but also for determining her eligibility for certain claims. She works in agriculture. She's a labor or related worker, and she doesn't choose to give us the name of her employer. So at this point, we've finished the personal information section. Next is the substantive law section. So she presses continue, and we know that she does not work for her employer anymore. So she says no. She was dismissed last week, so she knows that it wasn't 21 days, but if she didn't know, she can find out how to calculate the 21 days because there are differences surrounding public holidays and various other factors, and she'll select no. So she didn't resign, she was dismissed. And she wasn't on a fixed term contract. And she wasn't made redundant. So afterwards, we think that she's eligible for unfair dismissal based on the factors she's entered so far. At this point, we ask some of the substantive questions about whether or not it was unfair based on harshness, unjustness, or unreasonableness. In this case, we're dealing with procedural fairness. So she was given a reason, it was stealing. So she'll select yes. It was communicated to her, not very well, but yeah. And she doesn't believe it was valid. Then she can enter a short description of what she believes sort of occurred. And she doesn't like lettuce. And all of this information will later be forwarded to JobWatch. When she presses next, she'll have the next question. At this point, we've finished the unfair dismissal section, and we go to the discrimination section. So she believed that there was some sex discrimination involved. That's one of the possible categories. So she can select that. If nothing, she can select none of the above, but sex here. And she goes next. So at this point, in fact, it's already determined all of her potential claims. Based on what the app can itself do. So she's got an unfair dismissal, general protections based on discrimination, and a standalone discrimination claim. Now, some of these claims are going to have different procedures on how to go, so we suggest that she calls JobWatch immediately. The good aspect of this is that JobWatch now has an email in their inbox with all of the information she's entered, including a full transcript of all of the questions that were asked. She can call us. The caller can look her up in the database, and they'll get all of this information she's entered right away instead of spending 10 minutes continue to gather information. Below is information about what an unfair dismissal is, how to make an application, the fees, what happens, and there's also links to the forms that she has to fill out. There's a link to the bench book, which gives you all of the information on the claim. General protections is under it, and discrimination is under it as well. And that's it. Any? Yeah, any questions?
First, terrific work. I think it's late, as I'm correct in saying we get about 400 inquiries a month that we refer on to JobWatch just in Victoria alone. So there's a terrific need for an application like this. I was just wondering, when I noticed that when you work your way through, as I was this afternoon, being the geek that I am, and I got to the information part, which is very rich. It's very text heavy. Mm-hmm. Did you give any thought to how you could perhaps put a process map in, or do something that was a little more easier, more accessible to lay people?
We did. There was a bit of an issue because we don't want to be seen as giving legal advice, which was very, very sort of constraining on us at times. So we needed to give the full information. Now, the reason we've got this up front was because of that reason, that they can just call us and they'll get targeted information immediately, and we would have cut down the call time. We were going to sort of have it come up as, you know, if you've got an unfair dismissal claim, or if you've got a redundancy claim, for example, it tells you which redundancy notice period you fit in or anything like, or something like that.
Or you have X number of days, for example, to file that claim with the Fair Work Commission.
But there was a worry that this would be legal advice, and
God forbid.
yeah, God forbid.
Thank you. I was in fact going to ask the same question, but I'll try and swap around now. So I suppose even just things like whether you might use drop-down box, or even if it's the same text, but just trying not to have quite such a long slab is probably a good idea. And a bit along similar lines, I suppose many people using this won't necessarily have very high literacy skills. If you've got a number of useful drop-down boxes, if people are confused about things like whether they're on a modern award, even if you've given them the explanation what that is, are there defaults that allow them to continue to work through the system?
If they can select anything on the list, and there is a don't know section on modern award, for example, which they can select and it'll proceed. But just knowing that if you're not on a modern award, you wouldn't have certain claims. For example, you wouldn't have unfair dismissal unless you're on an enterprise agreement or modern award. So that was a factor in why we put it
And one of the
front.
reasons we stuck a link there is that even when you work for JobWatch, they often refer people to the Fair Work info line just to find out that information. So we did the same thing.
Yep.
Thank you.
So well done, guys. I guess I'm probably at a bit of an advantage to my co-judges in that I've seen you throughout the semester, so I think you've done a great job. My question is, you touched on average call length of 20 to 50 minutes with a target of saving 6 minutes a call. Is there any, can you quantify what you think this actually means from a JobWatch perspective in terms of efficiency?
The main thing is about implementing now a system where people will actually complete the form, and because most of our referrals actually come from the Fair Work Commission, in fact something like 75% come from the Fair Work Commission, we would want them to direct people to this app and to answer these questions.
In terms of, do you mean specifics, like how much time it would actually save?
Yeah.
I think there was an equivalency we were told about one today. An equivalent app in the US saved an organisation 3.5 days a month.
Right.
Yep.
Which is a significant period of time. If we could get 1 day a month, that would be wonderful. But almost anything really, because you do spend so long on the phones going through just getting that basic information.
Yep.
And I guess another thing we found is there are some information we have to collect for the statistics, and it's only a few more questions we have to ask, and then suddenly, if the caller is someone who's not eligible for unfair dismissal, which is very common, the hotline volunteer is informed of that as soon as the caller calls up. So that should save a bit of time as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
So does the data you collect drop straight into their database? Or?
Not at the moment, just based on their database. It's going straight into a searchable email, which they can just type in the name or the phone number and find the information.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So the next presentation is Fine Fixer for Mallee Family Care.
Hi everyone, we're the Mallee Group. I'm Olivia. This is Dom, Shayna, Will and Ari, and we've created fine fixers for the Mallee Family Care in Mildura. Mallee Family Care is a non-for-profit organisation that is based in Mildura, so they deal with the needs of the communities around the northwest of Victoria and the southwest of New South Wales. The centre provides a range of healthcare, welfare facilities for the communities around these areas, and we were working really closely with their legal services. So we'd like to specifically thank Lisa Newen and Stephen Blim for their work on this app and their guidance throughout us creating this app. Mallee Legal Services, they actually requested an internally facing app, which is different to some of the other apps today, which means it's going to be used by the lawyers specifically in client situations. So the lawyer's going to have the app in front of them, talking to clients who are having difficulties with their fines. So the fines that we deal with are things like toll fines, speeding violations, parking violations, and any other civil fines you can think around that area. Clients of Mali Legal Services are often individuals of quite low socioeconomic backgrounds and have struggled paying with their fines, or they've been given their fines in a situation of hardship, or they're dealing with mental illnesses. The clients themselves often have fines that are at different stages. So initially you have a fine that's an infringement, and then as you continue to not pay this fine, excuse me, you get enforcement notices, and there's further stricter and more expensive repercussions in those situations. So the purpose of our app was to identify the fine situation, stage of the fine themselves, and then to figure out how we can challenge these fines or how we can go about helping our clients pay those fines. They actually told us a horror story of one client who came in with a $91,000 worth of fines. So our app also needs to deal with multiple fines and from different jurisdictions. So the overall aim was to give the lawyer themselves an understanding of the fine information, the situation of their client, and how to go about that information. So I'm now going to pass it on to Ari, who's going to talk to you about the structure of our fine.
Just a word on the technology that we use. We use this thing that Neoda allows us to do, which is to use what's called instance forms. So with a regular application, you put values into these circles, which are essentially variables. So you put values in here, maybe up there, down there, and then in the end, you come out with a report that, you know, if you put in some creative magic and you can generate, an intelligent response using this data. But because we had a situation with multiple fines, what we had to do, and Kevin Mulcahy from Neoda was extremely helpful at all times of the morning to get this going, was to essentially, we put this kind of part of the app in a box, which means that you can go over this logic again and again. So, you know, you put in some variables that don't really change, and then you put in your first one, puts out the report. You go and do your second one, and then that will put out a report. And then you maybe put in the third, and you go down there, and then that's the third report. And so essentially we've just run the app 3 times in the same session, but the output-wise, what it actually does is puts it all into one report, and also means that you can get elements of each sort of individual bit to talk to each other, and then you can get a summary at the end. Say this particular variable, like in our app, we have an amount for a fine amount. You can perform arithmetic on each of the 3 sort of run through of the app to work out exactly what your total is and how long it's going to take you to pay. So that's instances, and that's what we use.
All right, so now we're just going to run through the app for you. So this is our front page, and if you want to know more information, you can click on the button. And this is our little logo that we made up just to make it a little more interesting. So start it off. We've got a little legal disclaimer, so you click that. And this is the main page of our app. So the lawyer is going to fill in all the client's details here about the fine. And if you scroll down to the bottom, this is where they add another fine. So that means it works for if you've got 1 fine, or if you've got 10 or 40 or however many fines, you can just keep adding in fines. So we'll just do a little run through of a fine. Say we've got someone with a toll fine that they didn't commit. So you select the jurisdiction, so say Victoria, $20 fine maybe for a toll violation. And if you click on these little underlines, they give you a bit of a definition of what they are. Then if you scroll down, these are the notice stages, which appears on your fine notice. But if you're not sure, you can again click on these. And this will be the lawyer going through it, so that's why it's maybe a bit more technical language. So then we've got the notice date, you just put in the dates. And these are the follow-up questions, so they change depending on what sort of fine you've got. So because it's a toll violation, you've got questions about the driver. So say they didn't do it, say they weren't driving, didn't have a valid e-tag, and here are some more, none of the above. And then, so we'll do another fine, so add another fine. Say this one's in New South Wales, and it's for $400. So it's a big one for public transport fine. And then again, you select the notice stage, the notice date, and the due date. And then let's say that they did this one. So they did commit the offence, but at the time they were suffering from a mental illness, and they're also on Centrelink. And again, there's some descriptions. If you pop on them, comes up with little details. And then, so if we scroll to the bottom, when you're all done, select done. And this is about how much the client can afford to pay per fortnight. So let's say, yep, $20. And we've got this is the information about the client. We've put this last because we figured that clients would come in and really want to get their fines off their chest and didn't want to, fill in all these details. So that's why I've got it here. Then we hit next. And this is the report that they'll get. So it's available in a Word format as well as a PDF, and the lawyer can print this out and give it to the client to take home with them. This is just a little overview. And then we've got colour-coded areas, so based on jurisdiction, as well as the fine stage. And then we've got a bit of a payment overview of the first fine, including how long it will take the client to pay off their fine. And then possibly one of the most important parts is the recommended action. So that is the client's best option based on what the details they've given us. So for that first one, it was a toll violation that they didn't commit. So their best option is to nominate the correct driver. And below that is all the details about filling in the form. And then if we scroll down, we've got the New South Wales one, so note the colour difference. And again, we've got the payment overview, the details of the payment, and then the recommended action. So for this one, it's to challenge the fine, or you can also pay for the fine. And then it's got some more detailed information, including, so for instance, the payment information, because they were on Centrelink, that means that, you've got Centre Pay as an option, and because they had a mental illness, you've got a work and development order as an option too, so that's where you work to pay off the fine. And then right at the bottom, we've got the totals of all the fines. So this is useful for the 40 fine person, and it's got a summary of everything, and it'll say how long at the rate of $20 per fortnight it is going to take to pay off your fines. And then just at the bottom, it's got some further information so that when the client's at home, if they need to call up, they can contact Mally, and they've got sort of the interviewer's name at the top so they can cite that. And that's our app.
So I read in the brief that the instructions were that it was going to be designed as a tool for the workers in the centre, and I'm just curious about that because it's such an intuitive tool. Congratulations, it's a really terrific workflow that you've put together. I'm just interested in what their thinking was about why they wouldn't make this more consumer facing.
Actually, I don't really know how to answer that. Yeah.
So that is certainly an option that we could move to doing a consumer-facing one, but they wanted this first. And I think they were just a little bit worried about clients who couldn't read, who were really facing a lot of disadvantage and would think of this as too overwhelming, I can't do it. But that's certainly something that they're looking to maybe move into, and that we'd love to kind of work with them to move towards that.
It's a really intuitive tool.
They also mentioned that a lot of their clients don't actually have access to internet or certain sort of services like that, so it's much they go out with an iPad and they have full access to it on their iPad to talk to their clients about and fill in the information.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
And a bit of a follow-on from that one. So it's for the use of lawyers rather than other people. Can you talk a little bit about the usefulness? What does it add in terms of, normally a lawyer would have some sort of template or trick sheet or something like that. Why is this going to make a difference to Mally?
So at Mally, they've got, at the moment, they're using just a kind of 3-page information sheet that they just hand to clients, and it's not tailored for the specific client, so it doesn't have any of their information, it doesn't have when their due dates are or any of their, it's just got all the possible options, and they need to work it out, whereas this is saying, this is your best option and probably what you should do. So for some of them, it's, you don't have an available defence, so you're going to need to work out a way to pay it and that sort of thing, whereas before they just had this generic information sheet that the clients would get and they'd have to work it out themselves.
Thank you.
The other thing is that this is an information aggregator. So at the end of the report, you have the option to email all the information to Mally, where they can manipulate it and use it.
If you had more time, would there be anything you would do differently to get to the stage that you are now? Would you do it if you had to go through the process again? Is there anything you would change, or are you comfortable with the end result?
There's so much data that you get from this, and there's a lot more that you could do. It's just a matter of working out the formulas, basically. And I guess if we had more time, more run-throughs, more tests, more asking more people maybe what kind of information they could they would like to get out of it, because it's really quite easy once you get all the data in to come out with all kinds of really useful information.
And just to follow on from that, did you find as you were doing did you have an opportunity to do some user acceptance testing, with the workers at the
our sort of content expert actually went AWOL on holiday at a fairly crucial time in the development of the app. We haven't been able to do that as much as we would like. So we really put this together just hoping that that was what Mally would really want.
And I think after we're done with this, we're gonna, they're really on board to work with it. So, when they're back from leave, we can have a chat with them about what we can do from there.
Well, congratulations.
Well done.
Thank you. Well done. So the third presentation is for the Consumer Action Law Centre Credit Consultant. Welcome, team.
Good evening. We're the creators of the Consumer Action Law Centre Credit Consultant, or CALC Credit Consultant, as we'll be referring to it. My name is Tanya, and these are Abby, Andrew, James, and Dania, the co-creators. Before we get started, we want to say a big thank you to Tom Wilcox, who is our liaison at CALC, who I don't believe is here at the moment, and to Gary, who made this whole thing possible and was with us every step of the way throughout the semester. All right. So the CALC Credit Consultant was conceived from a need to inform consumers about their rights with regards to the information on their credit reports. Specifically, it was made to be a substitute to credit repair companies, which have been proliferating in the past few years. These companies target individuals based on the potential adverse information on the reports, promising to remove them. And their clients often don't know what can be lawfully removed from a credit file and what really can't. This way, they're able to charge exorbitant fees for services that they could be performing themselves. So the idea behind CALC is that we make CRCs, credit repair companies, irrelevant by providing tailored legal information for users. This way, we're empowering our clients to correct their any erroneous data on their records on their own and to contact the relevant stakeholders, again, on their own. Abby will now be explaining who these stakeholders are.
So in terms of structuring the app, we decided fairly early on that the most common sense way to do it would be to design it around the 4 potential complaint mechanisms that are available to people who have inaccurate information on their credit or believe that they do. And the idea was to avoid the situation of clients spending unnecessary time in the app, and also to give them the most relevant information as soon as possible. The first step in the app then is to ask the client via a sorting mechanism whether they have actually got a copy of their credit report, because they do need that to make use of the app. So if the user does have their credit report, the credit consultant will ask questions to sort the user and direct them to the relevant parts of the app. As with many industry complaints scheme, there's a particular order that you need to follow to make a complaint about information on your credit file. The first step is to contact the company that provided the credit in the first place, so mobile phone service provider, internet company, electricity company, that kind of thing. If the complaint isn't resolved at that step, the next step then is to contact the credit reporting body where they got their credit file from, so Vida or Dun & Bradstreet. If and only if that doesn't resolve the complaint, the next step is to take it to the relevant ombudsman that covers the industry that the credit problems come from, so the electricity and water ombudsman in Victoria, for example. And then the fourth and final step is to contact the Office of the Australian Information Commissioner if they haven't been able to resolve the complaint with the Ombudsman.
All right, so we're just going to do a quick run through of the app, show off some of the structure, some of the things you can do. So the first run through we're going to do is to generate a user report and a complaint letter that the user can send off to their credit reporting body. So if we hit next and go through the initial screens, next, so the user hasn't complained to anyone yet. So this user's identified that they've got a little bit of personal information on their credit file, which is incorrect. So their name and address is incorrect. The app's going to ask them to enter their correct personal details. They'll hit next. And then the app is now asking them if they'd like to check any specific debts on their credit report to see if there are any errors. So if we go next, it'll ask them who the credit provider is, whether they've done business with them before, and then it'll ask some important details about the listing date. So in the background, this is determining whether or not certain threshold requirements are met. So, for example, the debt has to be at least 60 days overdue before it can be listed on your credit report. So knowing the listing date and the date that the debt was due allows the system to figure out certain issues with the report. So here we're just asking what the amount is. Again, we're doing similar things in the background. And these are sort of targeting noticing requirements. So they actually have to, under the Privacy Act, they have to give you notice in writing if they want to have any debts that you owe listed. We hit next. This is really just about information for the user. So a normal payment default, it's nothing really special about that. But if you go back one screen, if you look at the other option, it'll have this, which is a kind of very serious credit infringement that might be listed on your report, and it'll just give you a bit more information about what maybe you should do if that happens to be listed. So it'll probably tell you to contact a lawyer. So we'll just hit next. And this is the user report. So it gives you a readout of all of the issues. So the personal ones, the personal information issues are up here, and then it's got issues with a specific debt. And it has, because we flagged that you haven't made a report to the credit provider, it'll tell you that you should probably also do that as well. Next, we're going to say Dun & Bradstreet, because this is where we got our credit file from. And this is just sort of personal information that you need, like identifying information that you need to include with the letter so that they actually know who you are when you send them the letter. So if we hit next, we'll just fill out the final bit, which is the account reference number, and then it'll give you a readout of the letter that you can send. You can also download it in PDF form and send it off. Once you've done that, you can go to the bottom and it'll tell you the procedure for contacting your particular credit provider. So if we hit next, it'll give us information about contacting Dun & Bradstreet. So in that case, you can contact them directly via email, and all of their contact information is actually stored on their website. There's also other online forms and things that you can fill out for that particular credit provider, credit reporting body. So I suppose the next step is to run it through. So maybe someone's further along, and the next step for them is to complain to the Ombudsman. So let's just say I've complained to the credit providing body, and I've complained to these relevant bodies. I'm up to the Ombudsman. We'll go next. And let's say we haven't got a response from the credit reporting body. So we actually have to wait for a certain amount of time before we can make a complaint to the Ombudsman. So let's say I made a complaint 14th of July. I haven't had a response. They'll say, look, you've waited enough time. You can further your complaint. It'll ask us if we contacted, oh, sorry, that must be a bug. It'll ask us about our complaint with the credit provider, whether they've responded, whether we've got a satisfactory response. And then it'll ask us what the issue relates to. So if we look at this, there are a number of different issues. This is really just to sort out who the relevant Ombudsman is. So if we select financial services, it'll ask us a little bit more about the issue, what the value of the debt is. This is relevant to determining which the relevant Ombudsman is. We'll just hit, and there's also a little bit more information about that sort of goes to external resources, which will help you answer that question. So we hit next, and here's your report about which ombudsman you should contact, and also a small note about what they can and can't investigate.
Yeah, and the final thing that we just wanted to touch on was that throughout the process we wanted to make it look and feel as much or as similar to Calc's website as possible. So we grabbed off their website the green is their green, the links are their orange, for instance. And each link is highlighted in the secondary color scheme, so it's orange. And if there's not an example on this page, but any email address is set up such that if you click on it, your default mail provider will be triggered, and it will open up a blank email with a pre-filled. The address will be pre-filled, the subject will be pre-filled, and the phone numbers are set up such that if you click on it, it also trigger an application such as Skype or any other Microsoft link or whatever's. And commence a call to that number. And yeah, that's basically it. So thank you.
Well, again, great work. It's a really, what I liked about it, amongst other things, it's a pretty complete solution. So it allows the client to really get to self-help and get to an end point, which is so important. I was just wondering whether you had the opportunity again to do any testing of the app on live clients or customers, or was that not something available to you? And so when you were gathering data and instructions from the client, from the design client, what sort of data did you have available to you about the range of complaints and concerns that people raised?
Can you just come up to the microphone so we...
We didn't get a huge amount of information. I think the main sort of target audience were people who actually had serious issues with their credit report, but they also mentioned that they'll just get people who had perhaps seen some scary daytime television TV ad and they wanted to check their credit report or something like that, or check if there was an issue or something like that. But perhaps they needed, there's a sort of market for an alternative that didn't cost any money, or they wouldn't be wasting their money going to a credit repair company or something like that for something that they can just check themselves.
Yeah.
But otherwise, there wasn't a huge amount of information in terms of who the exact target was.
It seemed as though they were moving towards the idea of having this come up as when you look up something like credit report or fixing your credit report, the first thing you get is hits for credit repair companies. Yeah. And it looked as though they were working towards testing this as being your first hit. So really just giving them a clear source of information, referring them back to the website, so potentially embedding it in the website, and really just avoiding those other ad-like things.
Yeah, makes sense.
Thanks, Lois. So my question is about people who haven't gone to their first level, the person termed the University of Melbourne, I think it was in the first example. I might have missed it, but it says that you need to contact them first. Does it give you any assistance about that, or a sample letter or an explanation of what you might do? It seemed like there were things if you were further down the track, but not at that first stage.
Well, because potentially, the number and variety of credit providers is so huge, we can't really give you any specific information about how to contact a particular credit provider. Whereas with credit reporting bodies, it's much more limited. The other thing is that I suppose more of the focus on the app is on the credit reporting body. So under the Privacy Act, you can complain to really the credit provider or the credit reporting body. And it's really more important to complain to the CRB because they sort of have obligations to notify affected credit providers and stuff like that. So people who are basically have a listing on your credit report. So in a sort of roundabout way, it will eventually, I suppose, sort that issue out. But it does, it's various points throughout the app, it will tell you to try and contact the credit provider. But apart from that, there's not really that much we can do, given that we can't really know anything specific about the credit provider without embedding huge amounts of information to the app, which isn't really feasible.
Sure. There just might, may not be, the sort of couple of bullet points, to tell your credit provider, to tell that person that there has been a mistake, explain what it is, and to remind them that they are obliged to correct that mistake. Just something even simple like that, because people could get kicked out of the system. It looks like you're saying, well, don't bother continuing if you haven't done this. Make sure you go and do it first. And if they don't know how to do it, they may then feel like they can't use the rest.
We do have, however, in the credit provider stage, we do have embedded a link to, I don't recall which website it was, but it has a very comprehensive list of credit providers in Australia. And we do also have a report coming out on how to best contact your credit provider with some general information, but again, not specific to the individual providers.
Terrific. Thank you.
My question's just about where to from here. Is this something that's going to be placed on the website that can be accessed by the general public? What's the next steps do you see in terms of taking this forward?
I think it could be really useful as something on the Consumer Action Law Centre website.
Yep.
I think similar to the JobWatch app, I think it's got potential to reduce a lot of call handling and triaging of initial callers to some like a community legal centre, basically.
Okay.
Terrific. Thank you very much.
Well done.
Thank you, that was wonderful. The final presentation for today is for the Not-for-Profit Law Information System.
Hi, good evening people. My name is Adam and we have Carson, Lauren and Rachel in the team, as well as a fifth member, Hugh, who couldn't be with us today, unfortunately. To start with, we'd just like to thank Kate Fazio and the team from Not-for-Profit Law for all their endless guidance and support throughout the semester, as well as Gary Cazalet, of course. Just a brief overview, Justice Connect assists those ineligible for legal aid who cannot afford a lawyer, as well as the community groups who support them to access free legal assistance. They currently use an information hub which contains a large amount of information on not-for-profit law in particular. However, there are several key legal decisions that not-for-profit groups need to make when they're getting started, all currently requiring a lot of time and resources for both visitors and for the organisation. Now, Justice Connect and Not-for-Profit Law specifically instructed our team that our application shouldn't give users advice or definitive answers. Rather, the system should provide tailored and customised information based on circumstances and requirements with targeted links to various fact sheets contained within the information hub. The goal of our overall app is to give users a better idea of where to find further information on their desired structure, and crucially to provide a report that they can take with them for further legal advice, either to an independent lawyer or back to the not-for-profit law team at Justice Connect. I think the best way to explain this is to quickly run through our app. Now, a quick word, there's a lot of text on a lot of slides. We're going to be moving through quite quickly. It's not too important to read, but I think it's the best way to show you how our app works. Now, this is the launch screen that you end up on, and we've set it out with 5 main steps for users to work through. What does our group need to think about? Should our group be for-profit or not-for-profit? Incorporation, yes or no? What legal structure should we choose? And finally, charity eligibility. Now, once we agree to both the disclaimer and privacy policy, we can get started. Now, we decided to include some examples of what the questions are going to look like for users that they're going to encounter. So this is an example. You have some checklists, you have some free text sections. This is just a sample and it shows them what to expect further on in the app. As well as this, we have tips that will appear frequently throughout the app based on responses that they've already given. So it'll give a customised experience as we move through. Beginning, we have a checklist that's some preliminary questions and we're going to complete that now. Now, again, as I said, it's not too important to focus on the content, but all of these are factors that come into the final customised report. So Rachel's going to put in a few answers as we go, noting that, again, we have free text sections throughout for circumstances that users find are not considered by the answers that we've provided. So we keep moving down. We have questions on social enterprises. We have questions on joining other groups that might already exist. We have questions on continuing. Here we have number of members, formality of the group, and continuing down, types of employees. Activities of the group, also very important, and with a bigger free text section because we didn't want to try and limit this to certain options. It's just a chance for users to enter what they feel is appropriate in the circumstances. Once we're finished with this fairly lengthy page, we move on. And this brings us to a rather large decision, which is for-profit or not-for-profit decision. Now, we've included various hover text options, which really briefly and succinctly give users an idea of the definition of each of these terms, as well as we see, a tip below, which has been customised based on a previous answer. Below we have frequently asked questions, not too important to read them now, but they give, as succinctly as we can feasibly manage, a breakdown of some of the fact sheets found on the Information Hub. For the purposes of this, let's quickly go for profit, for example, and move on, at which point we find, unfortunately, we can't continue because not-for-profit law does not deal with for-profit groups. Again, we give some further reading, but for now, let's move back, and instead, down the bottom, select the alternative, which is not-for-profit, and then continue. This leads to many considerations. Now, there's a huge amount of literature, and we can't cover it all. This page tries to summarise it all in a table, for example, and again, we have hover text on the crucial terms that users, primarily lay people, can kind of get a really brief example of some of these meanings. Again, we'll note certain tips throughout, customised from previous answers. Moving further down, we have more general information here. Again, the priority is on providing information to clients, not having them, exhaustively get it all here, but giving them a general idea. We're going to select yes for the incorporation decision at the moment, and then continue. Some more general information. We give links out back to the not-for-profit law website, which prioritise their fact sheets and expand on the information given here. For now, we'll find out more about working with others /auspicing and continue, at which point we have a simple jurisdiction selection because the law does change between areas. We're going to continue with these options. Now, what we've chosen is unfortunately not completely covered at this stage. However, we respond with a coming soon page, which can be updated as the organisation sees fit. We're going to keep going. I think Carson's going to jump in.
So one of the largest decisions for a not-for-profit is choosing their legal structure. This is a really important decision for the user. Unfortunately, we can't put all the information on, so we have extracted the summaries and the most succinct answers that we can. Now, of course, the user goes through, they can read the important points, and they can select whether they're interested or not. Now, each of the structures has links to the external fact sheet, which provides a more overview and tailored information. So once the user goes down and scrolls, sees what they're interested in, incorporated association, and continues, then we come to the eligibility for charity. Now, on this sheet, we also have the hoverbox function, which is defined in charity, and the introduction, which links to an external fact sheet. Pardon. Let's continue with yes. We thought it'd be good to have a drop-down box, an options box, so they can select multiple factors. And of course, these are not prohibitive, and of course, their meanings are also available on external websites, which are linked on the same page. So once you've selected a few, you might continue. The purpose of this page is to sort of go through the legislation, to the Charities Act, to determine whether or not they're eligible. So one of the purposes is whether or not they're for public benefit. The hoverbox function over there explains what a public benefit is, and also provides an example of what user's charity would be. So if the user selects yes, continues, and then we consider disqualifying purposes. As with most of the questions, we do have another link to external fact sheets for more information. So user selects none of the above, they're not disqualified, and continues to the third question. To select no, continue. And it becomes a tailored outcome response. Now, we did have a issue with the tax. We figured tax was a very important aspect for not-for-profit legal structures, so we decided to leave it to the not-for-profit team and link them to the external fact sheets, which are all available there. We thought an additional information box would be very helpful. So in this box, the users can provide additional comments which will become on the outcome of the report. So thanks for the help. This is the contact details. We made it clear that this was used to receive their final report. So once the user enters all the information, the report will be automatically sent to them. And we thought we could give this to the users to use for themselves, Alternatively, use it to other further advisors such as lawyers or accountants if they wish. So once that fires off, this is the report they see. And it's downloadable in a PDF and Word function as well. So pretty much the report goes through each step that we've covered. So the before you start checklist pops up all the answers, resources that if they want to learn about more information. This is the before you start checklist, so all the answers are there for the user and the further advisor to look at. The not-for-profit or for-profit decision, which legal structures they were interested in, and provides further reading as well. The charity selections are also prompted up there and provides more further reading. The additional information also pops up on the end report. And that's our app. Thank you.
Well, congratulations. You've obviously done an enormous amount of work, and it's really evident as I was going through the app this afternoon just how much information is in there. It's very information rich, so congratulations. I can only imagine how many hours you spent putting all that together. One of the things that comes to them, I loved the tips and how embedded they were, and I also love the video I thought that was a really terrific idea. One thing I wondered whether you'd given any thought to, because there is so much data, is whether you could include some process maps to really give people a sort of a bit of a visual representation of the end-to-end process and where they were as they were going through stages. So did you have a chance to give some thought to that, or?
Yeah, it was actually something that came up quite a lot in our discussion. One of the big problems was that there are so many paths that a user can go down. So you might choose for-profit and end the issue there. You might choose to skip the charity issue. You might choose to incorporate or not. So one of the things that we talked with Kevin about was including something at the top of the page, so maybe issue 1 of 6, but because we couldn't in the orientation section, so just where getting started would be underneath there. But because we couldn't work out until a person got to a certain stage where their path would sort of take them, it was really difficult to do that.
And following on from that, and again, extraordinary breadth of information. You must know a lot about not-for-profit law now, which is great, a really important area of law. And this was more to do with the instructions that you got and how the back and forth. Might this just be too big for one app like this? Was there any suggestion that maybe it needed to actually take a chunk of this and separate it out rather than trying to complete every aspect in one?
And we definitely thought about the length of our app, and we're concerned about what to put in and what not to put in, something that we discussed quite a lot. We kind of, I guess, took on the challenge of trying to get everything in the Getting Started page. And one of the things that we've tried to incorporate is having the ability for users to skip through answers. So they can put in as much as they want and spend as much time, or if they're not sure, they can just kind of flick through and see whether or not they're interested. So that's how we dealt with that issue. But certainly I think there is the potential to split it.
I'm just going to ask a follow-up question. No. I want to. And the other thing I want to ask with the free text boxes, is that effectively just useful information if they do go and see a lawyer to all be together? It doesn't have any sort of keyword functionality that gives you any difference?
Yeah, that's correct.
My question was on the design. I really like the design. I think it looks great. I love the hints and the tips and the way that you've set the expectation at the start. Is that compliant with any particular standard, or did you come up with that design yourself?
Yep, so one of the requirements was to try and fit it in with their website. So all of these logos are from their website. All of the colours are exactly tailored to the website. Even some of the, even the colouring of the text as well. So we really tried to make it so that if it was incorporated into their website, it just kind of seamlessly looked like it was that. Even to the point where the report actually is tried to look like one of their fact sheets as well.
In terms of the tips, like a lot of other groups, we're constrained with not providing advice, legal advice. So we thought the tips would be a useful way of sort of nudging people in the right direction or helping them make a choice without actually providing that legal advice.
That's very effectively.
Yeah.
I thought it was terrific, yeah.
Well done.
Well done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, team. That is all of the presentations and all of the apps. I'm sure you'll agree that there's been an extraordinary amount of work that's been put into them, way and above what I might expect, but it was just absolutely fabulous. So what we're going to do now is have a break for about 10 minutes to allow the judges to deliberate, and they are going to work on providing 2 awards. I think it'd be a very hard thing to do that because they were just fabulous applications. But that's what they're going to do. They are going to come up with, first of all, the best design, which will be the runner-up best law app, and the first prize, which will be the Slater and Gordon best law app. So if you can just spend time while the judges go and deliberate for about 10 minutes. Thank you.
Well, firstly, allow me to thank the university for giving us the opportunity to participate in this way. It's something that, as an organisation, we really feel is important because we live in a time when finally technology is allowing us all to think about how we can bridge some of the gaps between the legal needs of people in our community and the resources that we as lawyers can provide them with to help themselves to get access to the legal system. So the work that you're doing is really important, and I've got to say I've been really impressed this evening and this afternoon when I was looking through the apps at the quality of the work and the quality of the thinking underneath. And I'm sure that if you had the opportunity to do some user acceptance testing and really start to experience the work from the perspective of the customer group, you'd be able to develop the apps which are already really terrific even further. It was a really hard decision for us, and it was a very close decision. Judges always say that, but it happens to be true. There's literally, a fraction between you all, so congratulations to you all. The runner-up award is for the best law app design, and that goes to JobWatch Legal Rights Information App. So congratulations, great product. So we loved many features of this, but in particular that it fulfills such a really important need that exists in the community, and it did it, I thought, in a really elegant way. So congratulations and well done. I thought the presentation was terrific too, so congratulations. So I think I have a certificate to, or a whole set of certificates to present to you. Yeah. Pleasure. No, well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well done. Thanks.
Thank you.
Congratulations. There you go. It's yours. Thanks. Congratulations. There you go. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
There you go. You've got an extra even. So there has to be a winner, and the winner of the Slater and Gordon Best Law App is for Not-for-Profit Law Information Systems. So congratulations, guys. I should say there was a lot to love about the work that you did. Obviously, an amazing amount of content. So, as I was saying earlier, I can only imagine how many hours you put into it. But I think, among the things that we loved, I loved in particular the little cartoon, and I'm sorry that not everyone maybe got to see that, but I thought that was really a terrific way of reaching out and trying to make quite complex information accessible to people, which is one of the ways in which technology like this can help. So well done. I loved that, and we loved the little wizards, the way that was embedded in the app all the way through, and really allowed people to get to the information well. So congratulations, great work. Well done. Thanks. There you are. Thanks. Well done. There you go. Thanks. Pleasure. Thanks.
Thank you.
Well done. Thanks. I believe we have cake. Yeah, we have cake. You can't have a bake-off without cake.
Can't have a bake-off without a cake, so congratulations, team, to the inaugural Law Apps Bake-Off, Slater and Gordon, Melbourne Law School.
Well done. Starving street. Thank you very much. To get some sustenance as well.
It's actually for sharing, so please stay.
Good on you. Well done.
Well, I'm just going to say a few words to finish off tonight. And first of all, congratulations to all of the teams. Because of the way this is structured, we did it as a competition and we did it with winner and runner-up and so forth. But I really hope that you feel that the skills that you've been developing in this competition are incredibly valuable. I've just been doing my annual round of all the law firms, not all the law firms, many of the law firms. And this issue just comes up over and over. How are the graduates going to be ready to bridge into the new digital age? Do we have people who are going to feel comfortable and confident and see this as an opportunity rather than as a threat in legal practice? And I was telling many people about this subject. They all said, yeah, that sounds amazing. And I also hope that what you feel that you've done in this subject is something that's really practically useful. This is not just about a mark or about you. It's actually about connecting with a set of fantastic community partners, and I'd like to thank those partners for their time and effort, and doing something that will be of tangible benefit, and particularly because of the scalability of all of this, of course, potentially tangible benefit to thousands of people. And you're the trailblazers. You know, this is the first year, the first time at this law school, but as far as we're aware in the country, and you've really set it out. We can do it. We can make a real contribution, and you should feel incredibly proud of that. And the judges, we were all saying it was in some ways a shame that we had to select one or something like that, because really everybody had just done such a great job. Finally, I'd like to thank Gary. Echo Gary, I'll thank Gary in a minute, in the thanks to a number of people. I've mentioned the partners. I really would like to thank Slater and Gordon. This is, for various reasons, a very expensive course to run, and we quite simply wouldn't have been able to do it without both the financial and the other forms of support that they gave, and similarly for Neota. So could we give a round of applause to them? And thanks to long distance to our friends in Georgetown for their invaluable assistance with the curriculum. Finally, I really would like to pay tribute, as all of the students have, to Gary Cazalet. This is a very complex subject, and running it for the first time is complex on top of complex. Normally you don't have to negotiate intellectual property rights as a subject coordinator, enter into a tripartite contract that extends across multiple jurisdictions, and that's even before you get into the classroom and start working with partners, setting up these linkages, and working with you guys. Gary not only took this on, but he took it on with a great deal of zest and has obviously tried to make it a fantastic learning experience for you, and hopefully a fantastic experience for our partners in terms of what we've been able to provide for them. So could we please thank Gary for his work?